Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Lisa with the Quiltmaker Homestead, and we are smack dab right in the middle of doing a compass quilt with no curved piecing. Y'all don't mind my appearance. I've been up since 5:30, been nonstop ever since. And today I've had computer crashing issues, all kinds of stuff. But in today's video, we're going to be sewing together circle number 4. Circle number 4 has some paper piecing. It has a few dots of applique, and I'm going to walk you through all of it. So at the end of today's video, we're going to be ready to start circle number 5, which should be out in just a couple of days. As soon as I have time. Y'all, today is going to be crazy busy. I need to edit this video. I need to count shirts for a t-shirt quilt and measure some logos. I have 2 quilts to quilt, which probably won't happen today. I have zippers coming for 2 pillows that I need to finish up. When Harlan gets home, we'll probably work in the garden. So I was hoping to do a live tonight to present Circle 4, but we'll probably be doing this as a premiere, and I'll be in the live chat, so say hello. But yeah, are you ready to take a look at the packet for circle number 4 and start sewing and getting busy with yours? Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we have circles 1, 2, and 3 all finished. And now we're ready to move on to circle number 4, which is going to be a lot more piecing this week. It's going to be so much fun. I already have my fabrics picked out. So here is the packet for circle number 4, and you're going to notice it's a lot more pages, right? I'm going to skip past the written instructions. You can read those if you want to, if that is helpful for you. That's the first 2 pages. The next 2 pages are templates for pre-cutting all of your fabrics. And there's 2 pages of those. And you're going to cut each one out directly on the line if you like using these. I find them very, very helpful. Okay. And then you're going to have 4 pages of foundations. And they look just like this. So 1 page makes up 1 unit or quadrant or quarter of circle number 4. So each one of these foundations are different, but there's 4 pages, right? So you're going to be making this one 4 times, this one 4 times, and this one 4 times. You're going to cut out your foundations just beyond the outside line. We're not going to cut them out directly on the line yet. We'll wait to do that once we have all the fabrics sewn and pressed in place on the foundations, okay? You'll notice that each of the foundations are numbered in numerical order. That's the way that we're going to add the fabrics. And each one, I have lettered. The little letters inside each position is the same as your foundations. So you know which foundation you're using for each piece, okay? And I thought what would be really helpful, since we have quite a bit more sewing to do this week, is I'll piece all of these 3 pages off camera. And we will piece each one of these one time. We'll do each one together so that you see how it goes. And I also thought what would be really helpful when cutting out your fabrics with your templates is I like to go through and count how many pieces of this A do I need to cut? And so there's 4 of them. I wrote the number 4. How many pieces of F do I need? I need 4 of them all together to do all of these. And that way I can cut all the fabrics out at one time instead of going back and forth, and it really does save a lot of time. So I will finish going through and counting how many I need, marking it down, and then I'll cut these out. I'll cut these out and start piecing, okay? And then the very last page looks like this. I have 2 copies. You're going to want to print this on freezer paper if you're doing it the same way that I am for turning your raw edge. We're gaining some size with circle 4, so the whole circle doesn't fit on 1 piece of freezer paper. So what I'll do is I'll cut this out and fuse it with 2 other layers of freezer paper, right? And we're going to be turning the edge on circle 4 in sections, working our way around instead of fusing one big circle and then turning the edge. Circle 4 also has applique dots. You'll see these here. You can use this as a tracing template with your fusible like Heat and Bond Light. There is also an SVG for Circle 4, and it includes these. You can cut them out with your Cricut, Silhouette, or Scan and Cut. And yeah, so we have quite a bit of work to do with circle number 4. I hope you have so much fun with it, and I'm going to walk you through making mine with you. Let me get busy prepping all of this stuff. All right, I'm still up here. Can you see me? I have my 3 templates all cut out. See that? And they are cut out just beyond that outside line. And then I have each one of my fabrics cut out, and come to find out, there's 4 of each. You need 4 fabrics for each template. I went through and counted them all, and it was all 4 fabrics for each template. So there you go. And I even have my little dots cut out. See that? I used my Scan and Cut, and we're going to be using those here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and get started with this template because it has the most fabrics. It's going to take just a minute. And we're going to work again in numerical order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very first fabric starts with the C fabric. Remember, we're placing our fabrics on the back side. And where's my glue stick? I'm going to go ahead and glue stick that very first position. You can just see the lines over there. I'm not going to switch over to my cutting mat because it just messes with the camera. And I'm going to center this fabric with the right side facing up, and we want fabric sticking over the top and bottom of the paper template. Just like so. I'm going to just finger press that fabric right into the glue. And before we start placing any more fabrics, I'm going to flip it over with the right side of the template or the foundation up. And I'm going to cut away the extra fabric on both sides of this piece, leaving a 1/4 of an inch, like so. That's a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so the very second fabric we're adding uses the B template. Let me find that one. So it's right over here. I'm going to draw this on, where's the pin that I can use? Here we go. I'm going to draw this shape so you can see it. Oops, that's not very straight. See that shape right there? When we have our fabric with the right side facing up, there's that little short edge. Now I'm going to place it right over top of that foundation so that there's fabric over all of these 3 sides, right? And then I'm going to flip it over. That's going to ensure that fabric covers the entire position when we flip that back over, right? Now I'm going to go over and sew this right on the line. I'm going to start off of the paper, so right on the line, and end up off of the paper. And I thought, instead of switching back and forth, y'all have seen me do that several times here on my channel, I'll just come back once I have sewn and pressed this seam, okay? So there we go. Isn't that pretty? Now let's go ahead and trim the extra fabric that goes beyond the next sewing line. We're going to fold right on that line and trim, just leaving a 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to be using the A template fabric. And I'm going to draw this shape for you. See that? So there's the slant, there's the straight. So see that? Slant, straight, top curve. Right side facing down. And that's how it looks. And I'm going to go sew on that line. Okay, so that's all the fabrics on that side. We're going to start back over here, 4 and 5. So 4 uses the D template. And I'm going to draw that shape so you can easily see it. Here's the small side and the curve. So when we have that fabric sitting right side up, there's the curve, there's the short side. We're going to match it just like this and turn it right side down. And now I'm going to go sew with that seam. So here we are, purples, yellows, and grays. Isn't that pretty? Now we're going to flip over and we're going to trim the extra fabric between 4 and 5. And position 5 uses the E template. I'm going to draw that shape on here for you. See that? There's your slant, slant, curved edge. If you were to put it on like this, it might be too short for that position, right? So we want to make sure, and that's why I show you how the pieces are laid out, because I think that's really helpful. And I'm going to place that fabric just like that and bring this over and sew that seam. Now I just got done sewing that seam right there, and before I press it, I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to add a little bit of glue right there and just fold that over, finger press it for a second. And I'm going to come all the way over to this edge, which is loose and just flops up from the paper. I want that to stay nice and snug because we're going to be trimming this piece here shortly. And now I'm going to press that seam and dry the glue on both ends. So that's how you piece this larger piece, right? You'll have 3 more of these to do. And now we have the 2 smaller foundations to piece. So let's go ahead and piece this one here. All right, for this foundation, we're starting with 1 and the F fabric. That's not the F fabric. This is the F fabric. And then the second one uses the G template fabric. So we're going to just turn this over, add a little bit of glue stick right there in the first position. We're going to add this fabric with the right side facing up. And we're going to trim the extra fabric. Now let's take a look at how the second fabric is laid out. With the right side facing up, there's your short side, and the curve. We're going to match that up and flip it right on over. So let me go sew and press that seam. So there we go, and we're going to flip that over and fold over the paper between 2 and 3. trim that fabric, and we need the H fabric. So our slant is going right there. There we go. Right side facing up. There's our slant. Top curve. And I'll go sew that seam. Now, since that's the last fabric on this foundation, Dolly's joined me. I'm going to add a little bit of glue in that space and then flip that fabric over. And that one is glued in place because that was our first fabric. So let me go press that seam. So here we go. Now this portion here is starting to form the pointy parts of the compass. All right, so we want to just make sure we have fabric going all the way around past that paper, even just by a little bit. See that? All right, so that's that foundation, and we have one more. And that one starts with the first position using the I fabric. And then the J. So we're going to put a little bit of glue right there. We're going to add our fabric. And we're going to trim if we need to trim. Actually, I have just a little smidgen there. I'm going to keep it. And I'm bringing in the J fabric. Now this has the short end here, long and straight, and the curved edge. Short and slanted, curved, straight. And I'm going to take that and sew that seam. There we go. And now we're going to trim between 2 and 3. And we have the K fabric. Let me just draw. Here's your slant, curved edge, and straight edge. Slant, curved, straight. See that? And I'm going to go do that seam. And, whoa, she scared me. Harlan just got home. Harlan just got home. That scared me. I'm going to add some glue right there. Fold that over, and we're going to give that a press. Okay, so there we go. There's that piece, and we have fabric all the way around. And what we have left to do, now you're going to repeat this, right? You're going to make 4 of these total, 4 of these total, and 4 of these total. Now, all honesty, it was so much faster chain piecing these sections. And I'm going to have to stop recording for a second. She's so excited that her daddy just got home. But it was so much faster chain piecing all of these sections. I went through it really, really quickly doing it that way. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim these right on the line, and we'll do that together. All right, y'all, I had to stop for the day yesterday. So much going on here at my house. So here we are. I'm going to pick back up. And what I found when I was doing the other quilt, my first compass quilt, was cutting the curves with scissors. And then I am going to switch over to my rotary blade and use a ruler and match up this inside line with the 1/4 inch line on my ruler. I do get straighter cuts using a ruler, but the curved lines I will cut with my scissors because I just trust myself more that way. So let's go through and cut this.
Beneath the stars the quilt is laid, every stitch a story, every seam displayed, guiding dreams like a compass true, whispers of the ocean call me to you. Sleep in peace, my weary heart, sail away on this gentle...
How great is that, right? Look how pretty this is going to come together. So we have our 3 pieces that make up 1/4 of this circle, right? And the way that we place them is this piece goes in the middle, and then the yellow should match up on both sides. Pardon me, it's first thing in the morning. My voice is not going to be working so great. So before we remove any papers, right, we want to piece these sections together. The main thing we want to focus on are the points of our yellow triangles coming together, and we'd really like for those to match. If they don't, it's not the end of the world, okay? Because on these sections, we have little applique dots, right? So after we piece them, if your points are slightly off, do not panic, right? Because we're going to be placing an applique dot right there that will hide that little boo-boo. So it's all good. No stress, right? We're not doing that yet, though. We're going to go ahead and sew these sections together. And I found it really helpful to match them up like this, right? Bring those 2 points together. Not so much paying attention to this cut curved edge because our cutting might have been off on the curved edge if you used scissors, right? So I'm paying attention to where these points come together just like this. Now you can use a pin and match up the very point just like that if you like doing that. But I'm just going to eyeball it and bring those points together. Match up this straight edge, and I will place a pin just so nothing moves as I take it to the sewing machine, right? And we're going to be sewing on that inside line, still the very small stitch, right? Whatever stitch you've used to do your piecing, we're still using that stitch. And we're going to sew this seam and then this seam. And then we'll go to the pressing board. So here we are, my 2 seams right on the inside line. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is just remove that paper from that seam on both sides. So there's the first side. One little nugget didn't want to come off. And now we're going to open these up and press these seams open, okay? We have lots of fabric coming in right in this section and then right down here at the bottom. So I have figured out that the best way to press these seams is open. And with the paper still attached, I'm not too worried about them distorting this shape. That paper on there acts as a really good stabilizer, right? I can already start to see that that came together pretty good right in that section on that side. And I just like to open it up and start pressing it with my fingers and then press with a good hot iron. And I'm going to press from the back side first and then flip it over and give it a press from the front. And I'm pretty pleased with my yellow points coming together. Yay! All right, let's come back to my desk. So here's our piece. We still have the paper on the back side, right? We're going to keep that paper on for a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my other pieces. So you can see we're starting to gain some good size here, right? They're going to lay out just like this. I think that's going to be fantastic with those pops of yellow right there. You can see a definite difference in the two fabrics I'm using for my compass part, right? And this go around, I did the lighter purple or the more vibrant purple. And of course, the camera really isn't showing the purples. They look more blue on the screen. So we're going to put this together much like we did the last circle, right? Or should I say, yeah, the last circle, circle 3. We're going to sew them in pairs, just like this. We're going to line them up and sew those two seams right there. So I'm going to go do that, and we'll meet at the pressing board. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and open these up, and you know what? Let's go ahead and try. First, let me get rid of this paper in the seam. I think it lays much flatter if you remove that paper first. Let's go ahead and open this seam up right in the middle. I will do it, and if it distorts, then you'll know, and I'll tell you not to press these seams open. It seems like that paper is going to hold everything together really nicely, though. So I'm going to press that from the front. Now this part I had to mute because Dolly was barking at our next door neighbor, and it was really loud. But yeah, I'm going to remove the paper from the seams. Press your seams to the side. Don't do what I'm doing here. And yeah, you'll see why here in just a little bit. So this is the second half. Press from the front. And at this point, you're going to have 2 halves of circle 4. You're going to flip right sides together. And you're going to have 2 seams to take to your sewing machine and align those up and sew right on those 2 lines. Now coming back from the sewing machine, I'm going to remove the paper from these seams, and I'm going to get ready to start pressing these 2 seams. And that's when I notice, you know, I'm going to try to open them up and press them, and I do that. But I'm looking, and there's folds and like fullness where everything is not laying down flat. See the extra like wrinkles and folds? And so I have decided at this point to fix that. I'm going to go back through and start pressing seams over to the side. It's almost like you get a smidgen of extra fabric when you open those seams up. And pressing to the side just seems to eat that extra little tiny bits on both sides of the seam, making the circle lay down flat. And you'll see as I'm working my way around, the circle starts to lay down nice and flat, right? So go ahead and press all of your seams from the very get-go of circle 4 over to the side. You'll have a much easier time, and you won't have to go through and make this correction like I did. I should have known, because when I first made this quilt the first time, I pressed all these seams to the side, and I didn't have this problem. So I've gone through and folded every single seam over to the side, and everything starts to lay down nice and flat at this point. And you can see now my circle floor is laying nice and flat, and I just give it a final press. Okay, here we are. And yep, pressing the seams to the side. That's my advice. It's laying down much flatter now, and there really is no fullness. So now comes my favorite part, is removing all of the papers, and I'll bring it through that. Some people like to watch that. They find it satisfying, much like I do. So, but I will fast forward that part. And once I'm done, I'm going to bring this back over to the pressing board, and I'm going to press it with this side facing up just the last time before we start to move on with our little dots.
Wrapped in comfort beneath the trees, a compass quilt, oh how it gleams, navigating softly through our dreams. The mariner's compass points the way through tempests strong, through night and day. Each patch of memory, both old and new, holding close the dreams that carry me through. Close your eyes and feel the sway. Sail away on this gentle breeze, wrapped in comfort beneath the trees. A compass quilt, oh how it gleams, navigating softly through our dreams. So when the stars begin to fade, trust the quilt, the love we made.
Okay, this is all pressed nice and flat. Look how pretty that is. So when I did my first quilt, I originally thought now would be the perfect time to add our little applique dots, right? But do you see how easy it would be to stretch this out of shape? So before we add our applique dots, we're going to hold off just a minute, and we're going to go ahead and turn the edge under on this piece, okay? So let's flip it over to the back. And here I have my template. There's 3 layers of freezer paper, and then I cut it out. When you're cutting this out, see how much black I have at the bottom? And see how I still have a little bit of black at the point, at the tip of that triangle? Now what we're going to do is we're going to line this up. This is your C piece, right? These triangles, full triangles, not the pieced ones that are the longer parts of the compass, but these full triangles, there's 4 of them. If we line this up to the bottom edge right here, this inside circle, if we line this up so that the seams of my yellow, whatever color you're using, those 2 V seams should match there. And then those 2 V seams should match there. And the point of your triangle is right there. Let's scoot this down. That should give you an approximate 1/4 inch to turn over. And we're going to work in sections, right? Matching this up to all of these things. These seams, that point, these seams, that seam should match there, and that seam should match right there, right? And it's hard to see mine because I used a gray thread. But when you do that, you're going to have a nice 1/4 inch to turn over, and we're just going to work in sections all the way around, and I'll bring you over to the pressing board as I do that. Now I think this part took me the longest of making circle 4 because I was being really careful, just paying real close attention that I folded that fabric nice and neat, nice and snug along the freezer paper template. And I will say this, I have looked at the bottom of my iron. This is a Black & Decker iron with a stainless steel plate. And I would say investing in a magic eraser is going to be one of my top tips for this quilt if you have an iron like mine, because the starch dries to your iron plate and my iron is filthy. And that's one of the things that I just want to let you know. Your iron is going to get really dirty when you are doing applique with starch. Yeah. And through the years, I have done this method on turned edge applique before, and each time I've needed to really clean my iron afterwards. But you'll notice I'm pulling that fabric nice and snug, and I'm double checking it before removing the template and moving to the next section. And in between each of the sections, you're going to have a little space that you need to go back and put that template back in and check those areas as you're working all the way around. But I'm just lining everything up with the seams and working my way around this circle. I'm adding a little extra starch in all of those seamed areas where points come together and you have some thickness in those seams. And my little stiletto, even though I work the edge of the fabric over the template with my fingers, the stiletto really grabs the fabric with the point, and you can really snug that fabric right against the freezer paper. Once it cools down, you can remove the freezer paper template and move on to the next section. I've been having a lot of fun with this quilt, and I definitely like my fabric choices much better the second go around. And you see, I just re-wet and fixed one little section I wasn't happy with. So if you don't like how it's turned, it is not too late at this point to re-wet the fabric and adjust your seams that are pulled over along the edge. This right here is just one of the gaps in between the sections after I lined up the template all the way around. And once that's dry, I'm going to remove the template and I'm going to check it from the front side and give it a final press. And this time I will use a little bit of steam. I want to make sure all this starch is nice and dry and all the seams are nice and flat. Okay, here we are. It's nice and cooled off. My edge is turned over nice and pretty all along the edge. And I really think that, you should just be having fun with it and take your time, right? And so at this point, this is still pretty flimsy. So I'm going to hold off on the dots because I really feel like if we anchor this in the middle, it's going to help stabilize circle number 4, right? And keep it shaped nice and pretty. So what I'm going to do is add some glue dots, right? But we want to center this piece right in the middle of this piece. And it's going to be super simple. There's a few things that I want you to pay attention to that's going to help you line this up right in the center. So if we look at this section here, we have a seam that goes right down the middle and right down the middle. And these seams line up with these seams in circle 3. So the seams that go up and down, I want you to think of up, down, left, and right, right? We're going to go ahead and line this up so that the up and down seam match up with our compass that's going up and down and left and right. See that? So if we start to line this up, we'll pay attention to this seam here, matching that seam right there. Same with this up here. We're also going to pay attention to this seam here, matching up with this seam here and here. And when you do that, what you're going to notice is this seam starts to match, that seam starts to match, this seam matches, that seam matches, that seam matches all the way around. And this seam here should just fall right in the middle of these pieces, right? So we're going to just finagle this until it all lines up perfect. And then I'm going to try not to move it. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So just like before, I'm going to take me some wet glue, little dots, and I'm not going to press and dry the glue yet. I'm going to glue one side, then rotate it and glue the other. And before I press and dry that glue, I'm going to just double check that I haven't moved anything. Just going to hold that there for a second and let that glue start to grab that fabric. And then I'm going to just try to rotate that right around. And I'm going to lift up this side and do the same thing. Okay, that looks really good. Now I'm going to bring it over to the pressing board. And when I do, I'm going to go ahead and adhere my little dots. So I've already cut out all my dots. They have heat and bond light on the back side. And while we're pressing the glue dry here, I'm also going to go ahead and place my dots right there. And I'll just be eyeballing it. I want it to be centered underneath of these yellow little triangles. And we'll press those while we're there. I really don't think the lighting with the camera is doing this much justice because it looks so much different in person, but it still looks fabulous, right? So I'm super excited to start stitching down all of these pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that same blanket stitch on, one that just travels lightly along the edge, right? The same one I did right here, and I'll put those settings up on the screen, and we're going to anchor that right in the center. And then I'm going to bring in some bits of my medium weight cutaway stabilizer because I'm going to use the same little zigzag stitch that I did for these dots on these dots. But I really feel like I should stabilize this as I'm doing it because it was a pretty small really close zigzag stitch, not a satin stitch. It's not a full line of really tight stitches, but it is rather small and a lot of needle pokes really close together. So I'll use little bits of cutaway underneath of these as I'm doing it, and I'll bring you along for a few stitchings of those and for the stitching of this. Now I need to find the gray thread that I used for all of these pieces because it just kind of disappears. I mean, I'm looking up close, I can see it, but from this far away, you really don't see that, do you? So let me get my gray thread in the machine, and I'll use the same thread in the bobbin, set up my blanket stitch, and we'll meet at the sewing machine. Now I'm going to speed up this part of the video because I was here really just taking my time enjoying this process. But we're going to speed it up because we've already been here for 46 minutes already, and I want to get you sewing. Now, one of the things, once we're done with the sewing, I'm going to show you a little revelation I made. But see how I'm struggling right here? The seams where those gray points come down and meet circle number 3. I'm struggling to go over top of a few of those different little places. If this happens to you, I want you to stop and make sure, look underneath or feel underneath with your finger. Make sure that that seam is going in the right direction. I have a little bit of a revelation as I turn this over on my desk, and I noticed that where I'm struggling and where the sewing machine doesn't want to go over those, the seams were turned in the opposite direction. And so that makes sense now. But really take your time. There is going to be a little bit of thickness where those gray points come down. If you struggle like I do, lift your needle up and move your piece just like 2 stitch widths forward, right? And then lower your needle back down and continue stitching. That might help feed this part through a little bit easier, but it actually ends up that my seams were turned in the wrong way, and I just didn't realize that. So I'm going to go through and do a blanket stitch along the edge of circle number 3. And then I'm going to trim that thread. I'm really happy and pleased with the way the gray thread just kind of blends right in there. And then I'm going to grab my little bits of cutaway stabilizer and just fit it up under where those applique dots are. And now I'm using my zigzag stitch. And I thought I was going to move over to my open toe foot, but I decided against it. And I'm doing a small little zigzag stitch all the way around each one of these dots. You'll see that I take a few stitches and rotate this piece, and I do think that stitching down the dots at this point is much easier than after the quilt is layered and trying to rotate the quilt, all of the quilt, through the throat space of the sewing machine. So here we are. I have sewed down all my circles. My computer froze. I've been having some computer issues lately. I hope that doesn't ever happen during a live. But I finished sewing down all my circles. They all have that little zigzag stitch. And it is laying nice and flat. Let's take a look at the back. You can see that I just roughly trimmed all of the cutaway stabilizer close to the circles. And I realized when I was trimming away the extra stabilizer that probably one of the reasons why I was getting stuck doing the blanket stitch around circle 3 in some of these areas. See this, and this? Those seams are flipped over. See how they look different than this and this and that? These are flipped. And so pay really close attention. If you're having trouble going through doing your blanket stitch around this area and you're wondering why it's getting stuck in there, stop for a second with your needle in the down position if you can, but sort of lift up your work and check that seam underneath because it might be flipped over like mine was. Now in the big scheme of things, it's okay. And it all seems pretty flat. There's a little bit of thickness and bulk in those areas, but overall it seems pretty flat. But that's probably why I was getting jammed right in those sections. Yeah, so this finishes up circle number 4. Look how nice and round that edge is. Isn't that pretty? And I cannot wait to start circle 5 with you. Circle 5 will finish the points on the big parts of our compass. And it'll also finish the circle part of our compass. So I'm super excited. Keep an eye out for that video coming up soon. And don't forget to share pictures of all of your progress over on the Creative Crew. There's a link in the description box down below. We'd love to see you over there. Okay, everybody, get busy, have fun. That's the most important part. And I'll see y'all really soon. Bye.